Andy, we're in season 4 years of this. But hey, everybody, welcome to Gardens, the Untold Story. I'm your host, Ken Somerville, my co-host, Andy Lopez, the Invisible Gardener. And we're still going over Andy's book. And we're talking about mulch today. So, Andy, why don't you start us off and give us your ideas on mulch?
I have to say this. I woke up, I don't have a body. All I have is a head and a little bit of a neck. So the body is not showing up. You see, it's empty here. I'm sorry about that. I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere for it. I found some shoes.
Invisible.
That's it. Look at that. It's just nothing. I just realized that. What the heck is going on here? Okay, mulch. So what I want to do is I received a mulching question. Believe it or not, it's in the book. You can look at the book. So I'm going to just read it. So we always love your advice. Need help on this one. You encourage and mulch over the soil to retain moisture, amongst other things. Here's the dilemma. An agent in my office also volunteers for the fire station near our home. He was assigned to the San Diego Fire Department. He experienced several bad situations with mulch igniting and basically acting as kindle. We have mulch everywhere. We're thinking of removing it. What should we do? So this brings up the question of there are different kinds of mulch. Mulch is as confusing as it is, as compost is confusing. Hi, silly. It's me. Hi, silly. It's me. Look at it. Now she changed her name. Is that silly? Silly?
Yes, Silly Lily.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Hi, hi, silly. You changed your name, man. It's like so cool. It's like Silly Lily. Oh, what? What's with the old one? There's more than one of you? So like they're old too?
Well, I think YouTube made some changes in how they display names. So that's all through YouTube, man.
Seriously, really? Well, so it didn't make me a change. I'm having a good time with YouTube because I realize now who is in charge of YouTube algorithm. And so I've been having a really good discussion with that person. It's a computer,
Okay.
I'm having. So anyway, so mulch is, and I've been doing this for a real long time, and people have very confused about mulch. I mean, more confusing than compost. They think compost is anything we go to the store, we buy compost. But there's decorative mulch, which basically does nothing but looks good, and that's what people use for mulch. And there's only one good benefit of the decorative mulch, the little tiny wood chips. And it's basically that if your soil's alive, the mycelium will grow like crazy on the wood chip. It does. You can lift up a little piece, you see the white little mycelium growing on them. I recently had a whole bunch of a whole bunch of wood chips come dumped on my place over here. So I put it out. And as you know, I'm increasing biology like crazy. And after the rains, I lift up the wood chip and there's mycelium growing all over the wood chip on the lower half. I said, well, that's cool. It may take forever for the mycelium to break down the wood chip to make it more of a soil. So that's one thing that people have to understand is that there's one reason why you have mulch is to protect your soil from the sun. Hi, Beth. Arrow.
Be the arrow.
Be the arrow.
You were talking about, mulch going on fire. Now, I know that a compost will heat up and self-ignite. I also know that a wood chip pile stacked too high will actually heat up and can self-ignite. But I've never heard of, a normal mulch, unless, there's sun hitting a reflective surface and heating it up where it would self-ignite. That's a new one for me.
Mulch doesn't self-ignite, but the wood chip, when there's a fire coming through here, the fire department doesn't like mulch because mulch will catch on fire really. So one little sparkle from the fire or whatever, push, and then that would be burning this, and they have to get rid of that because that causes a fire. And so but people think that mulch is all that they need to do to protect the soil, to protect the trees. One lady says that mulch is going to choke her olive trees. Wood chips, mulch is going to choke the olive tree. It's killing the olive tree. And
let's because I know that in some cases, if you have your mulch right up against the bark of the tree, it can cause issues, so I tell people like leave, an inch of space around the actual trunk, but I don't know that anything like that's going to choke her tree.
My experience has been if you use the wood chips, you can go right up to the trunk and it's not going to do any damage whatsoever. The difference is the type of mulch that you use.
Okay.
Produces like compost. If you use the compost right up to the trunk of the tree, it's no good. Or if you use, I prefer to use mulch that both does the job of protecting from the sun and breaks down to add more humus to the soil.
Yeah.
That's the best kind of mulch. Layton, when he makes his compost, he adds a certain type of mulch to it so that when you blend it to the soil and you water it, it leaves a layer of this nice mulch protecting the compost from the sun. And that's the best. That's the best kind of mulch, rather than a decorative mulch, which really is just decorative. It does nothing for holding water. Maybe it protects it from drying out real fast. With the laying on top and the sun hits the mulch, doesn't hit the soil directly. But I prefer something to put on there as a mulch that will return to the soil within my lifetime. That's just important to me. So to me, it's important that you learn the different kinds of mulches that you can use, and then that depends too where you live. An example is here in California, we have alkaline soil, so it makes acid to have an acid. It makes sense to have an acid mulch. See, right? But if you live in other places where your soil is acid, well, you say not to go up to the trunk of the tree. Why?
Yeah.
Well,
why do you say not to go up to the trunk of the tree? Any ideas?
but most people, what they do, what they don't understand, it depends on the type of mulch you use. If you use usually what happens is if you go up to the trunk of the tree, the mulch will retain water and could provide fungus among us. It could provide a mold or some other things that happen like that. See, but that doesn't normally happen if you have a living biological soil, because that will stop that from happening. It's not a problem. It only happens when you have dead soil and you use this kind of mulch and it's getting too much water and it's wetting the trunk of the tree. Think of the trunk of the tree as the socks. If you're wearing a sock, if you had wet socks all the time, not good.
Yeah.
See? Yeah. So that's the one way to illustrate it. But then again, if your soil is alive with the soil biology, it's doing really well, everything's going really good, you can grow it right. You can have a mulch right up to the trunk of the soil. Again, it depends the type. If you use a wood chip type, it doesn't hurt it at all. But if you use a type that's more of a soil, then if you do up to the trunk, it will damage the outer layer of the tree and cause decay in one form or another, and could cause a fungus among us, or it could cause a problem with the way the tree. Basically the trunk is the bark is a very important part of the tree, because that's where the liquids flow right underneath the bark. There's a layer there. I don't know the name of it, but it's basically, if that gets damaged, it interferes with the tree's ability to absorb nutrients from the soil, right directly from the soil, because the root systems don't go. The roots go into the tree, and it's the area around the bark that brings it all up to the rest of the tree. If that gets damaged, it's the same thing with if you were to actually cut around the bark of the tree all the way around, you're going to kill the tree, because it's not going to bring up any nutrients up into the tree. So most of the time, if people have a healthy living soil, they're already using the proper type of mulch. A living mulch is better than.
You think of Mother Nature, she doesn't leave a barrier at all, but then, in a natural forest situation where, the leaves are all falling naturally, there it is a living soil, and it's going to break it down. But I do want to point something out to people. Compost is not mulch. Compost is a living ecological system of broken down organic material, and if you use that as a mulch and it dries out, the sun gets on it, dries it out, the biology is going to go into sleep mode. They're going to cyst up, and you're going to have a problem. So do not use compost as a mulch. use that underneath your mulch. And I wanted to bring this image up, and I brought it up on Monday's show with Leighton when we were talking about the horizontal soil system. You can see here, the living mulches on the very top there. You'll see straw, you'll see rice hulls, etc. These are some of the varieties of substances that you can use for mulch. But mulch is all about protecting what's underneath it. The mulch layer will dry out. What's underneath it is going to maintain that soil, which is going or maintain the moisture, which is going to maintain the life in the substance or the compost that you have underneath.
Just think of the way Mother Nature does it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mother Nature knows the difference between compost and mulch. If she was making compost all the time, things would not work very well, because the sun will do, and the rain and the toxins will kill the compost. So Mother Nature, in her wisdom, not only makes compost, but she allows it to be mulched over. That's when the leaves fall on it, all the kinds of other things fall on it, and covers that. And so that's why it's layered. You go in the forest, you're going to see layer compost and mulch, compost and mulch. You never have compost as the top layer, and that's important for people to understand. One of the things I say in the book is that wood chips are not mulch. To me, mulch is something that contributes to the benefit of the soil. Wood chips will be there for years and years and years and never decompose, never break down. Maybe in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Oh, Andy. Now, I put wood chips down that were gone in a year because the biology got into them and broke down the material, and I had to put more wood chips on to create that. Because it breaks down into compost.
We're not talking about genius people like you that have living soil. We're talking about people who have absolutely nothing going on in the soil, and they throw the wood chip on top, and they expect something to happen. So
okay.
Like with me, in my backyard, if I put wood chips down when I first got here, nothing's going to happen. Now I put wood chips down, and it's already, my mycelium is already attacking it. It's already doing something, which means that in a short period of time, it'll start breaking down. Even when it rains, it tends to wash all that stuff back into the soil again. So it's naturally feeding it. The difference is that people think that by adding wood chips, they're doing something beneficial to their soil, and therefore the soil should be recovering, should be doing well. There's an exception to that, is that like when I go to spray people's property and I know it's a new customer and they have lots of wood chip, I inoculate the wood chip with my biology. Okay.
Yeah.
Inoculate the wood chip with my biology, and which then, if I come back in the next month, and then again, I also have to tell them, okay, so you need to get a filtration system for your property, because like I was at this house today, and the lady said, I don't understand what's going on. Well, do you have a filter for your whole property? No. Well, there you go. That's part of your problem.
Well, yeah, her water is killing all the biology, which would be trying to populate the wood chips and the mulch. People just need to wake up and get that education that, what's coming out of your city taps is designed to kill, the biology. And that's, if you're drinking it, it's killing the biology in your guts as well.
I'll give you another example. So in my worm farm, I put a layer down of wood chip. It's gone within months. I wouldn't be able to find any wood chips at all whatsoever, because the worms will bring the biology, and they'll be literally covering it and eat everything right up. They're already eating pieces. I got these pieces of biochar, big chunks. They're already going through that. So it's a difference whether you have a really active biological property or a dead property. Mulch, wood chip is not going to do it. Even mulch is not going to do it, because mulch, generally speaking, doesn't have the biology that compost has. That's what you need to apply as a compost. That's what I tell people: rock dust, compost, and mulch. That's the basic little simple principle I've always used. Apply some rock dust. But I've learned from experience, you when you make your compost, that's where you add the rock dust, not applying it directly to the soil. So when you make compost, make sure it's rich in minerals, and then you blend it into soil, and then you mulch over with something that's going to protect it. If you just use the wood chips, fine, to protect it. But I would like something that decays faster than a year or two. I like stuff that's just, so I buy stuff that's already been broken down already as a mulch. lots of things that
Well,
they
would
grind
you
up.
add, say, straw in with wood chips, or like a cocoa core or something like that in with your wood chips? Or
So if it was my property and I owned it, yeah, I would layer it in. I would constantly be layering rotations, just like I do with a worm farm. So when a worm farm, I'm layering a carbon material with green material. I would add this, whether it be straw, whether it be wood chips, newspaper, layer. And that's so the lazy man's guide to gardening. That's basically what he does. He would layer everything on a regular basis. Every time you put a layer down, another layer will go on top. Keep layering and layering. Over the years, all the layers come down, and the drip system is underneath all of that, right? And then that's the ideal scenario to do it. In my yard here, I just put a layer down of cardboard, put a layer down of since I have lots of wood chips, put a layer down of wood chips on it. But mainly what I've been doing is I've been putting the wood chips into the worm farm, so it's disappearing really fast, and then inoculating the chips that way. A lot of times I could just put chips on the top layer, and then within a week they were covered with my seal, and take them and put them in the garden. I could do that. See, so it depends on how. If it's your property, you're going to be around for a while because it takes a while to build up this layer. It takes a while. It takes years and years to build up this layer, and that's why Mother Nature does. You go to the rainforest. She's been layering all the time, layering. Everything goes happening in a layer. See, you don't get just one thing, the same thing. You get a layer of things. So if you cut it sideways, you're going to see there's a layer of this, there's a layer of that, there's a layer of this, and each layer will convert. And then, so ideally, you do want to have. That's one reason why I was telling you today about biochar. Okay, one of the things we're going to do, we're going to put a layer. We're going to activate it and put a layer of it on your property, because it has no carbon whatsoever on the property. Everything is like thin clay, and it's like not a single worm around. Okay, I saw a worm hitchhiking in the back of my truck in my house. Okay, so that's really bad. So it's important for people to understand the real purpose you have mulch is to protect your soil, whether it be compost or whatever. It's to protect it. It keeps the sun from baking it. That's what happens. The sun will bake it, destroy the top layer that you have, especially if you're only making a thin layer of compost. You're not even turning it over deep enough to get down below. So if you do it right, then the compost will survive. If you don't, then you're wasting your time, because you have just killed the top layer that you laid down. That's why I tell people it's important to turn over with the soil and then cover it with a nice, in our case here, I use an acid mulch. I buy it from the store, a wonderful product, which is basically an acid mulch. So it's made already ground up. It won't start a fire. Fire department does not like wood chip. They'll tell you to take it all away. We don't want that. But they were saying, oh, mulch, you can't mulch at all. And I said, no, there's a big difference between wood chips and mulch that does not burn. There's a big difference. It's like in compost. It's a big difference. When they get carried away, you can't put anything on your soil, it's going to burn. No. That's not true. It's very important. I personally like a living mulch the best.
And that's what I wanted to point out is that living mulch, and we've showed it on one of their shows. The different living mulches that you had pictures of the different varieties. The low growing layers that work perfectly.
So here she is. I'm waiting for a joke. I haven't seen her joke yet. So I'm waiting for a joke.
Oh no, she's put lots of jokes up, Andy. You're not watching the comments.
I didn't see it, but she says she's using a ground cover and daikon radishes, and they are developing a root. So you can have any type of living ground cover, because the more roots in the ground, the better, and they will protect the sun, to protect the soil from the sun. A living mulch is the best because they take a while to even if they were harvest. And personally, one of the things you have a living mulch for, you let it die in there, you let it decompose, you let it go return. So if you're using something you want to eat, that's slightly different. But usually, so that's why I use carapia. I use a variety of other things that I like to grow, and then I let it go back to seed, let it return, and it definitely is the best way to go, because it provides a wide variety of biology. The mulch, if you use wood chips, they provide the biology of the tree. When a tree dies, it decomposes, right? And all the different layers of the tree turns into this mush and just returns. It doesn't decompose as a wood chip. It decomposes as a nice fine layer, which then returns to the soil, which then is covered by leaves. The tree covers it with leaves, right? And that's their mulch. And there you go. Their layer proceeds. And the worms will love it in there. And it's acidic, and it has a very specific biomean that will help the soil to continue on with the process of feeding the trees and taking care of the trees. Eddie, do you notice that the play on words with mulch instead? What does she say? Instead of mulch?
Mulch. Let me find her the comment that she
That one, right?
is referring to. It was a joke that she had put down. This one here. How does a gardener say thanks? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was looking for your jokes, Serena. I'm sorry. I wasn't. I can't look at straight into Ken's eye and at the same time look over there. I have no idea what's going on. What's Garfield? Well, this is another one here. What is Garfield's favorite
gardening method? Lasagna gardening, because Garfield loves lasagna. But let's get back to her question. She should be pulling out the daikon radish. No, just knock the top off, let it rot in the ground.
Right.
It's creating a void in your ground, and it's creating a place where the biology can live and devour that daikon radish. It does so much better. But yeah, snip the tops off and then just lay that down. It's like what I do for when I mow my lawn. I use a mulching mower to keep those grass clippings going down to supply food for the biology.
So when I have a raised bed, I would rotate one of the beds with a living mulch. And basically, I do not harvest it. I would just let it die, turn it all over, add a little bit of compost to it to continue the process, and let it cover it, let it decompose before I plant in it. You do not want to plant in it while it's decomposing because the plants won't do well. But once everything decomposes, it's amazing stuff. And it also cleans your raised bed. It cleans the area of any diseases and pathogens as well. So you're doing a bunch of different things to it. So living mulch is really me. I do peanuts, legumes, all kinds of things that grow in there like crazy. Anything that wants nasturtiums is also a wonderful one. It's called nasturtiums. They make a wonderful living ground cover. When they die, they all return right back, and then they decompose. Same thing with weeds. I love letting weeds grow because when they die, you can have to actually test the weeds. You'll find that it's rich in certain minerals that the weeds have pulled up, that the weeds have brought back and returned it to the soil. Mother Nature has a very weeds are medicinal plants for the soil. I was telling that the other person that the other day because she was telling me that the weeds were killing her olive trees and choking the olive trees. And I said, no, weeds are Mother Nature's medicine. And if anything is choking the olive trees, that the soil doesn't have soil. It's sitting inside hardened clay. The clay is so hard, and it's no air, no nutrition, nothing. All this rain, you think it'd be soaking wet. No, the water runs straight down to the next door neighbor. And then these olive trees normally survive they come from Italy. And in Italy, they're at the base of this volcano. So it's ancient soil that's like hundreds of feet deep, right? Sure, you don't have to water it because it's got nice deep soil. But when you don't have the soil and the trees start to die from lack of oxygen and lack of nutrition, then so the guy's right. The olive trees the root systems are choking, but it's not the weeds that's choking them. It's not the mulch that's choking them. See what I mean? It's the fact that she does not pay attention to the fact that these trees are growing in hard rock clay.
Well, yeah, you're creating that layer that the water is running off. Where if you have the good compost underneath and your mulch layer on top, then that ground is able to start soaking that moisture in. But then at the same time, if they're spraying with city water and killing the biology that exists there, it's going to harm the mechanism for drawing that water down into the soil as well.
And no amount of compost will come back. Even Layton's magical compost, if you spray it regularly with toxic water, what do you think is going to happen? The compost is going to go, okay, fine, I'm done. Doesn't in Mother Nature you don't have that. The rain, if it's unless it's acid rain or toxic rain, whatever is happening now, but normally the rain is pure and clean. It's not the same thing as city water. Nowhere near it. Right? That's why things look really, really good afterward, because it allows the biology takes it and allows the plant to drink more. Right? They drink the nutrition and they need water. We need clean water for everything to survive. As simple as that. That's why I don't. I have to take a shower in it, but I like to be able to bathe in clean water because you absorb to your skin as well. And you don't want to be drinking this stuff. You know what? Definitely don't want to be cooking. Wait a second. I was going to read this. What does it say?
Did Andy say weeds are Mother Nature's medicine? Market gardeners don't like weeds. Is market this is the one that Farmer Cheryl put up. Market gardeners don't like weeds. Is market gardening regenerative?
I don't understand why market gardening don't like weeds.
Well, if you have a market garden, say you're growing, lettuce and cucumbers, and they're pulling the weeds out so they don't interfere with the plants. But some market gardens are going to be regenerative. Like my family, when I was younger, we had a market garden for strawberries, and we actually, spread straw 6 or 8 inches deep over them before the snow fell to form, protective for the winter freeze. But then it turned into mulch for the next year. And then our strawberries never got dirty. Most market gardens, though, they're growing with bare soil. And that's one of the reasons they don't like anything there, because they're not really understanding that they're drying their soil, especially where Andy is in California. You guys have the Santa Ana winds that dries everything out. Regenerative, it's all in a mindset on how to grow with nature. But if you're working up your soil, deep tilling, every time you change crops, then no, I wouldn't class you as regenerative.
No, it's not
killing the biology.
It's not regenerative. They could call it regenerative because then they could get more money for it.
Well, it's just like calling it organic, right?
Right, yeah. So they get more money for it. They think let's call it regenerative, even though we're not doing anything vaguely resembling regenerative gardening. And it's a trick nowadays. They like using those words, but when you look at how they grow, what they do, nothing's regenerative about them at all. You're lucky if there's anything. I'm pretty sure that they use all kinds of chemicals as well.
Well, some are better than others, but yeah, that's where you have to get to know your local farmer and buy right out of the field and know what they're doing. But Serena had a question here. How is the volcanic ash from Hawaii going to impact soil health where the bulk of the ash lands? And you can start off with this one if you have a response, Andy, and I have a response as well.
No, I have a response, but I think the old person should go first.
The old person would be you, though, okay? I might be Santa Claus and centuries and centuries old, but no.
Yeah, I'm going to be 77 in 2 weeks.
Well, happy birthday coming up.
Yeah, I want an electric car. Look, so just think of Mount St. Helena.
Helens.
How is it? Helen.
Mount St. Helens.
Mount St. Helens. Now it's luscious and green everywhere. It recharged the whole land. It recharged it. It regave it minerals. It regave it the energies and started growing. So that's how it will affect it. So actually, if you're smart, you would bag that stuff and start selling it, because that's one of the richest and the best ways to regenerate your soil. The soil biology goes nuts with this stuff because it's got trace minerals left and right, all the carbon you need, and it's done because it's a high level of energy. this stuff is actually very, very good for you. I'll give you another example. In Southern California, there was let's see, a hot mud bath place, which
Mhm.
basically is below the ground. There's a volcano that's spewing out this hot lava, and it's turning this whole mud into really hot volcanic mud, and people soak themselves in it.
Yeah.
And
And like you have to think about Hawaii is all volcanic.
yeah,
The entire island was built from lava coming up and from that ash settling. So yeah, this is potash is something that people put on their lawns and gardens. It's the same basic idea. It's full, full, full of building blocks. Now, if you have 2 feet thick, well, other than worrying about your roof caving in because of the weight, it's going to take a while for it to regenerate, just like
that,
Mount St. Helens. It
that's
took
the problem,
years
right?
for it to come back.
That is the problem. Yeah, 2 feet or more, then you're going to say, well, it may take a few years for everything to come back, but it does eventually, given time. Mother Nature doesn't care about time. She has time on her side. She could take 1,000 years for all she cares, and it'll be fine. But us humans would kind of like to see it within our lifetime, as opposed to waiting 1,000 years. My kids would get it. That's a big difference there. This person here, she's really making some nice comments. I like this one. Did I do it right?
You need
Oh
to
no,
kiss
come
the
on.
ring.
I didn't want to do it. You guys moved it. Somebody said something and moved it on me. Let's see, what is this one? Okay, so I think it was this one. What is this one? There you go. See? So I think she's growing tomato carrots as a ground cover. I'm really not sure. I don't know what happened there. It's not a question, nor is it a statement. Right?
Yeah, I think that's Serena and Lily talking back and forth between
Yeah,
themselves.
they have something. They have something going on. I like this person here too. That's silly. Organic, natural, and now regenerative are words that have been absconded. Don't assume that all you buy at the farmers market is what they claim it is. And it's true. It's just been getting worse and worse and worse. They're throwing words out, and people are buying it. Chemical companies are calling themselves Mother Nature. They're calling themselves the Green Company, and it's like people, oh, it's okay. No, it's not. It's just a chemical company that's using a name to confuse you, thinking that, well, Mother Nature, it's got to be good. It's got to be good. Same thing with farming now. They're calling all kinds of things regenerative. When you look at it, you go, well, what's regenerative about it, right? And so it's not building. Regenerative to me is that it's self-sustainable. It will, once you
Yes.
do it right, it will produce itself over and over again. It'll last you longer than your lifetime. That's regenerative. It's not regenerative if you have to constantly be amending the soil. You have to constantly be doing something to help it grow. That's not regenerative. And most of these regenerative things that I see in the market now, I actually look at. I asked my favorite AI, "Is this place regenerative?" And it comes back, no, because they have to add this, they have to add this, they add that, and they're allowed to use certain chemicals to fight off the pests and diseases.
Well,
People's
you're talking, the naming. The perfect example of that, Andy, is sugar,
yeah.
because they say, oh, sugar's bad, 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 but then on the packaging, it's not sugar anymore. They use like 12 different other names that are sugar, but it's not called sugar anymore, and most of it's all chemical garbage anyway.
Yeah, it's gotten really bad because it's hard to buy what you think you're getting, and it's that way pretty much with everything. Uh,
Hmm.
for the homeowners, it's even more difficult because you go to a garden center and you buy stuff for your garden, and you think that this is regenerative, this is going to help bring my soil back. They don't seem to understand. They don't key into the health of the soil. They key into confusing you to buy something that without saying it directly that it's going to help the soil. We're just going to call this name, call this. So there's lots of things on the market I can show you that you look at it and you go, well, it's got a nice name. and that's about it. That's the extent of their product. It's like the same thing. I don't want us to get banned again, but it's the same thing with food, right? It's the same thing when you buy something, you think that it was grown organically, but it really wasn't. And I think nowadays you can even buy stuff that's organic, but it's not organic unless it's certified organic. It depends what part of the country. If you buy stuff that usually are shipped from other countries, they have different standards entirely. So there are a lot of places, they don't even use the word certified. To them, it's organic. So to them, they could be adding almost any number of things. I know of a person who says, well, malathion is organic. It's an organic compound, right? Or DDT is organic, is an organic compound. Therefore, I can call it organic. So there are lots of things that are organic that are not safe at all. Nicotine, sulfate, it's organic. It comes from tobacco, but it'll kill you faster than anything else. And yet any chemical will, So it's a process. And mulch has gotten really entirely out of hand because a lot of times I've looked at stuff in the market. The biggest problem are the tree companies because they would grind a tree up and then sell it to you as mulch. They neglected to say that tree had a disease. That's why it died. That's why it ground up. And guess what they're passing on with their mulch? The disease. So I go up to this place called Charmley. It's a park, and the rangers are really up in arms because the city decided you need mulch, and we have to get rid of all this mulch. So they go and cut these trees down, which are diseased, and they need to be cut down, and they take it over there to this place, and they mulch the heck out of it with the disease, which then passes the disease on to the oaks or whatever trees are growing there, because they're very susceptible to that disease. And that's not a very good way to mulch,
Well, that's somebody that's just plain ordinary, stupid, ignorant, and has no regard for nature and life itself. If they're doing something like that, there's somebody getting paid in the background to manipulate that, and that's where that side of things really annoys me.
I know it's getting worse because there's no really regulations for these terms that they're using. The word natural has been totally abused. And now I at least see something that says natural. I'm looking at it and I'm going, I don't think so.
And it's got names that have 16 syllables in it. And it's Latin. It's probably not natural.
I tell for people, if you can't pronounce it, don't buy it. If you can say malo, okay, I'm not getting that. That's about as unnatural as possible. And they make it nowadays in smaller and smaller ingredient lettering. You have to look and go, you have a little glass, magnifying glass. Oh, look at that little thing in there, right? So it's getting worse and worse and worse. And then to confuse the matter more, so you buy something that's organic, but the container is toxic.
Yep.
Yes,
we should get back to mulch, though, Andy.
Okay. Talk about mulch. What do you want to know?
Well, I want to know if I should just mulch my lawn. Is that something that people do, like just mulching a lawn?
Well, see, again, it depends on the type of mulch you want to use. If you mulch with wood chips, you're going to kill your lawn. But if you mulch with something that's already been broken down and you rake it into your lawn, that's very good because it provides a nice layer of this wonderful mulch that won't interfere with the growth of your lawn. Which, if you do it right, for example, here in California, the lawns are growing in this clay soil, which is heavily alkaline. And I know from experience that biology only lives in certain pH levels. So when you do an acid mulch, you're actually bringing the pH down a little bit more. And if you're smart, you inoculate that mulch. So before you apply it, or even after you apply, you inoculate it with a living biology, like a liquid that you can spray, or the worm juice you can spray, or compost tea you can spray. Then it's an excellent way to help the lawn, especially if you're going to be seeding it too. What a lot of times what you do is called aeration. You have a machine, you run up and down, punches little holes in it, and then you mulch. You can mulch it. The mulch to me is a blend. When I do the lawn, I would do a blend of mulch and a blend of compost rather than compost by itself. I've learned if I just use compost down, and if it gets to be really hot there, whatever, you lost a big chunk of it. But if you blend it with a mulch, blend the two together, like Layton stuff is a blend of compost and mulch. So the mulch will end up being on top, and the mulch will end up being below it, because that's the way it is. When you water, a thin layer of the mulch stays on top. But it does, if you do it right, you rake it in, the grass will grow right through it easier. Even if you were to cover it, it'll still pop up through it, because the grass is
Now,
not going to die.
I know a lot of people, they get those big rolls of straw, and you see it online all the time. People, planting fresh grass on worked up soil that they smoothed out, and they put their grass seed down, and they roll out this straw matting to hold down, to help the birds not get at their seed, etc. And yeah, everything grows right through. But if you have a vibrant lawn already, would a straw matting like that, like it's only like I think a half inch or a quarter inch thick, would that be something that a person could add to get extra mulch in their system?
Yes, right. That's right. Normally, the best way is to have like a mulching mower. When you cut the grass, it returns everything back again. So there's the definition of mulch right there. See, the grass clippings go right back into the ground, they decompose. That's what you want. You want a mulch that will naturally decompose. The best one is what you get from. So that's why a mulching mower is so good, because it doesn't haul it away. It chops it up into little pieces, puts it right back again, and you get better growth, healthier plants, because you're not throwing away the biology that normally would be there if it was to decompose and mulch. Because that's what normally happens in nature. Everything just falls down and decomposes and mulches and stuff. See, some things naturally turn into a mulch, other things naturally turn into compost. It depends whether or not you have other systems that go with it. If you have a lot of animals, so you have a mulch will fall down and the animals will poop on it, there's your compost.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I have a mulching mower now. I used to do lawn care decades ago, and we used the aerating machines because they had too much or too thick of a layer of unbroken down material, which back then I didn't think much about it, but now I understand they were on city water, killing the biology that would break that down and creating that layer. And so they wouldn't want more mulch on top of that, because they don't have enough life there. Nothing's living and the water's running off. But if you have a healthy living ecosystem in your soil and you're not killing it with city water, then you shouldn't get that extra thick layer in there where you would even need to aerate, because it's going to break down as fast as it is blowing in from your mulching mower. It's being eaten. But Serena said you only got the back half of her question.
What was the first half?
I got African Nunum basil seeds from Baker Creek, and it's a blend of organic or oregano and basil. That's why I was asking if all basil has the same effect as the regular basil, or if any were more or less beneficial.
In my opinion, they all are different. That's why you buy the different types of basils, because you would taste them. For example, they're different. The chemical makeup is different. The root system structures end up being different. Some will grow better than others. Some make a better covers. Others don't. It really depends on the variety. One of the things you learn about when you plant stuff is you need to see where they originate from, what country they originate from, and that will give you an idea as to what you can plant for your system. I normally, when I plant, the way I plant stuff, I don't plant any one kind of. For example, I just finished planting a whole bunch of things. I blended together basil, parsley, beets, radishes, leaves, lettuce, oregano, all kinds of stuff together, and made it into one really cool blend, and nothing but mulch and wood ash. And that's because your grandma, the person, your grandma has figured it out. You don't have to throw any of the stuff away. You let it be mulched down. Your mulch is really your compost, because the biology will break it down into a form of compost. See, and that's why mulch is so important. If you give them the right one, if you give them the wood chips, it doesn't have the blend that it needs for the compost to be a a total product that has all the minerals it needs. Remember, you want to do all the minerals, and they all don't come from one plant. You want to get as many different sources in the ground growing as possible, so they can provide all the different sources of the trace minerals that you want. And then you're doing something right. If you're growing years after, like 60 years with this lady, she is doing something right because she's recycling all those trace minerals right back into the ground again rather than taking them away. And that is
well,
idea.
they started with beach sand, and we talked about, sand and all the different building blocks like silica and calcium and magnesium that's in a single grain of sand. So by starting with that sand layer, you just put in warehouse after warehouse of building materials that for the biology and for the plants.
That's why it's a really good idea to start with. Even the salt that comes in it is rich in nutrients as well, rich in trace minerals. That's what beach sand is. It's very salt. If you was to test it, you're going to see it's lots of salt, and that salt is your trace mineral sources. I take certain types of salts from different parts of the world, and that's my trace mineral source. I use a C90 myself, which is basically ended up in the sea sand, right? Sea sand by the seashore. I don't know what happened there.
Okay,
So,
I'm just looking at that chart on what's actually in sand. Let me bring it up because Andy, I hate to say it, brother, but unless I'm totally lost in my visuals here. Let me get the right screen. I'm not seeing add the stage. I'm not seeing salt, but I don't. What do you know? What the chemical
sodium
element is? Sodium.
SOD. It's either S or SD. But I
Yeah,
think calcium, iron, magnesium, potassium, nickel, copper.
molybdenum. Yeah, I'm not seeing. So now the C90 is great because that is another way to get a bunch of minerals, but I'm not seeing the salt in sand. So I just want to clarify that.
So it must be not ocean sand. It must be sand that comes out of your soil. Sandy soil, for example, rather than. I was thinking sand from the beach. That would have the
Well, the
sodium.
thing is, the sand particles itself, like if your sand is dry when you take it off the beach, there's going to be maybe a skip on top, but it's going to wash through the sand back into the ocean. So I just want to make sure people understand not to confuse that the salt is one thing, sand is another, and there isn't the salt in sand itself.
A lot of people thought when they use sand, it's washed. They wash the sand.
Yeah, and you're not going to get any salt in it. So
you're not going to
the
get.
C90, the C90 Andy is using is something that you could be putting on. It's why in Korean natural farming they have the salt solution that you put on, and even if you're in landlocked like I am, you can take a good quality sea salt, mix it in with water, but you're literally using like a 1 ounce to like 100 gallons or something like that. You don't want to have too much salt.
No, when I use 100 gallons, I don't even use an ounce because an ounce would be like, for example, now it would be fine because it's raining and all that stuff and it's very easy. But if it's a hot day or hot temperature, no way. I use maybe a couple of tablespoons of salt. Remember, it's trace minerals, and the salt can literally burn. So if you add too much, if you do it wrong. I like C90, but I'm also keying into more natural sources of trace minerals that normally come with the plant, with the product, so to speak. That's why I like using rock dust because it is a natural source of trace minerals. And you can overdo a good thing. Right, you can overdo too much of a good thing. Too much trace minerals is no longer. Remember, it's trace minerals. Na is sodium, right? Na. So I didn't see
and it is on the chart at 5,000.
Right. So Na was on the chart.
Yeah. So let me bring the chart back up here.
So I was right. There it is.
Na is right there.
Right.
But it's very low.
It
in
depends
how
again.
much is
If
actually
it's
there.
ocean sand, it'd be saltier. If it's your sand in your backyard, of course, there would hardly be any salt in there. So it depends on where you get the sand from. A lot of
Yeah.
places, then they wash the sand out to remove any more salt, because usually sand will have a good amount of salt in there. But it's also, as you can see, a wide range of trace minerals in the sand, which is really good because that's what you want. All you have to do is add something that'll come and eat it up and spit it out.
Yeah, if you have the right biology, biology is going to take that sand crystal, break it down into its component molecular parts, and feed it into the plants and other biology.
And that's why it's important to key into the biology, because the biology is meant to break up all these minerals. It's meant to reduce the sand. If sand builds up, then it becomes toxic, or any trace minerals build up, it becomes toxic. See?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Well, that's why the Romans used to salt the fields to, back in the day, right, to kill
Yeah,
all
when
the
they
crops.
conquered people, they salted field, they stopped them from producing their food. That was the chemical
Yeah,
pesticide of those days.
yeah. It was cheap and easy. They could just get it out of the ocean of the
Yeah.
salt flats, right? But then,
Nowadays, I know a lot of people that go to the ocean, even though it's not a good idea now. But they take the ocean water and then they add a little bit of it to their liquid and they spray.
mhm.
And so they say it's good, but unfortunately, it's harder and harder to find ocean water that doesn't have toxins in it, or the microplastics or
I don't
chemicals.
think there's anything on any place on our planet that doesn't have the problem. But
No.
let's answer Serena's question here. I have green sand and azomite. When should I use them?
Okay, green sand is located off of only one place that I know of. It's called New Jersey green sand. And green sand is an ancient sea life. It's been around millions of years, and that's why it's green, rich in trace minerals, has a neutral pH. Azomite is a form of crushed rock dust from a certain place. Azomite, I think, is from Colorado. It comes from the ancient mountains, and it's crushed up. So they will each have different trace minerals in it at different levels. Azomite, for example, is deficient in calcium. Green sand, on the other hand, is rich in iron, magnesium, potassium, all those things, and maybe 33% calcium. And so,
Now, would you say she shouldn't be, adding it, sprinkling it on top of her bed? She should be putting it a little bit into her compost. Would that be the proper way to use it?
exactly right. Unless you have a really highly rich biologically soil thing going on there, which then you can, of course, apply to your soil a little bit. The problem you do that is you always want to make sure you don't overdo it. You can overdo too much green sand. Definitely kill plants if you overdo it with rock dust. Because remember, they will adversely affect your pH of your soil, and in turn
Mhm.
adversely affect the biology in the soil. So you never want to really be adding things directly to the soil unless you do it in tiny, teeny weed. And the best way to add it to the soil is already have it processed through your compost.
And for as far as I'm concerned, we really shouldn't be just sprinkling it on top.
No, no.
If we're doing compost at all, we should be automatically putting that into our compost, giving it some time to break down, have the biology eat it up,
It's
put it
very
into its
difficult. It's
component
very difficult
parts.
to be adding this stuff to the soil and not have some
Yeah,
adverse damage. That's why I said you can go very, very lightly, but very few people I've ever known would sprinkle just a tiny. They will just dump a whole bunch of stuff everywhere, and then wonder why they're having problems, because it does adversely affect the soil biology. It does adversely affect your pH level. Azomite is very alkaline. So you add too much of that stuff, your pH level goes through the roof, right? Green
yeah.
sand at least is not so alkaline, but it's not acid either. It's slightly neutral, so that doesn't affect too much. But again, if you do not have the biology in the soil, nothing you add will break down. There'll be
Hmm.
nothing there to eat it up. So it's a waste of stuff, gets washed away, and actually it becomes adversely. It'll kill worms. worms can only handle, earthworm can only have so much of this stuff. If there's too much there, it will destroy them. So I would say
Yeah.
never. So I'll change my answer. Don't add it to the soil directly. Add it to your compost. If you don't make compost, then what's the purpose of buying the green sand and buying the acimite? You think you can add it to? There's probably one way that I can think of. So if you happen to have a worm farm, you have a leachate, yeah, you can add it to the leachate. Let it eat up the. Because I do that sometimes. I would add green sand to my leachate, or if I have to a blend of rock dust. I can add a little bit, but then you have to add just a tiny little bit. So in a gallon of water, you may be adding maybe half a cup. You're stirring it up, and then you add other things to it to help it break down. So I would add some milk to it. Milk would be wonderful to help, or even some rice to it, increase the biology. If you have compost, then why are you adding it to the liquid? You add it to the compost. So I would tell people add compost tea because that helps, right? So if you already make, the best thing to do is learn how to make compost. Make the best. Everything goes through there. You want to do it in tiny, small amount. You want to be able not to kill your worms if they happen to be in your compost process, right? That's
right.
important.
Now, one of the things that, and we talk about, don't be a moron. It's all about maintaining the balance. People like, if I'm making 55-gallon drum worth of compost, and that's what I built is 55-gallon plastic drums I've made into compost tumblers. The amount of green sand that I'm putting in that 55 gallons is like ounces worth. And most people, they're taking cups and pouring cups in. And that's where a lot of our problems begin, is putting too much in of one thing. If you're going to do stuff like that, guys, do very small amounts. Find somebody that's creating, a really good, healthy, biologically alive soil, and they're giving their recipe away, and look at that, because if you're putting in too much, you're damaging yourself more. And so it's always better to put in a little bit less than to put in too much.
Think of it this way, okay? It's called trace minerals,
For a reason.
not major minerals. It's called trace minerals. So whenever you add beyond the trace minerals, it becomes toxic. Too much of a good thing is bad. You can drown in 6 inches of water. We need water, but too much water, we die. Same thing with salt. We need the right kind of salt. I was talking to somebody today. Don't take too much salt. As I said, what you mean is don't take too much of that toxic salt, because that'll kill you. But the good salt, even the good salt, you only can take so much because your body cannot handle too much salt. So if you do that,
and if your liver and kidneys aren't up to speed and doesn't have that proper metabolic process happening, it's very, very much detrimental for the human body.
So definitely not, because I remember I told you a long time ago, this one guy, he did a study, see what rock dust does to plants. So he dumped about 10 pounds of rock dust into this raised bed, killed all the plants. And he said, see, rock dust killed everything. I'm going, yeah, right. A cup would have been enough. And even then, I wouldn't add the cup to the raised bed, because there's nothing in there unless you have it full of worms. And then I would go even lighter. I would go sprinkle it very lighter, because I would kill the worms if I added a cup of rock dust, because it'll just kill them. I know in my worm bed, I cannot add. I maybe do a thin layer of rock dust, a thin layer, not on a regular basis. It will kill them. I learned that from experience. Oops, I guess I added too much rock dust, because the worms would be like, "Oh God, I can't," right? And so it's
before we're almost at the end, Andy, and I do want to hit Serena's last question here. I have a 55-gallon rain barrel. How much green sand can I add to the water once it's full, or is it best to not in the water barrel due to possible clogging issues? This green sand is not to be added into a water mixture. It's to be added into a compost, a soil, but it does not dilute in water.
It's not water soluble. Remember, it's in the ocean for thousands and thousands of years. It's not water soluble. It will process right straight through. It will definitely clog. I can't add it to my machine because it will clog up my machine. It will not
Yeah. It's not
dissolve
for
in milk.
foliar sprays.
It's not for foliar. No, you can't do that. The only way you could do that would be if you add it to your compost and then use your compost, make a tea out of it.
Yeah.
Or even,
Yeah.
even if you, look, I would, if you have a worm farm, I would probably, and you have a liquid from there, you can add it a little bit to the liquid, let it, let the biology go through it, but you wouldn't want to let it sit for a week. And even then you want to strain it out because you can find a whole bunch of it still is not going to dissolve. It takes a while to do that. So it depends. If you have a lot of time, you can wait for your green sand to dissolve. I would definitely run it through your compost process. Learn to run everything through your compost process, and you'll be in that 55-gallon barrel of rainwater. I would add a pound of organic white rice, a gallon of milk. That'll do you a much better process because it will all become water soluble. The biology that the rice brings up, the biology that the milk brings up, it's all water soluble. And then spray the heck out of everything with that.
Yeah. No, she says she has an 80-pound compost containers. How much green sand should she add to that? And I'd have to get out my books, Serena, and look it up. But I don't think it was, I think it was, ounces of green sand.
Yeah, I wouldn't do
that
more
I
than
was
a
putting
cup.
in.
I wouldn't do more than a cup for that 80
Yeah.
pounds. It also depends what you've been adding to your compost already, because normally the way you do it, you don't do it at one time. As you're making your compost, a thin sprinkling on a regular
Layers.
Yeah, it's layered a little bit. Compost layered a little bit rather than just dumping it at one time. So a cup is more than enough. So when I would make a big giant pile of compost that's taller than me, I would never add more than a few cups of whatever green sand or whatever rock tiles I would use. As a matter of fact, I would blend the green sand with the rock tiles and have a cup of that rather than a cup of green sand and a cup of rock tiles. See, a blend is the way Mother Nature works. That's what you do. You blend it all together and then you use it. I think the time is up, guys.
Well, Lily says she wants to go enjoy her chamomile tea. So
yeah, me too.
Okay, well, let me tell everybody what's going on tomorrow. We have the chiropractic is sexy on tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Paula is going to be back on Sunday, and then Monday we're doing another Horizontal Soil System show with Tom Landry. The week after that, we're doing another Horizontal show with Josh from Yellow Skunk Farms, and then we're going to end up having a new gentleman on in February, at the beginning of February, Travis out of New York, who's doing another commercial Horizontal Soil System. And then we're going to have a panel on with those three guys in Layton to, tell us how their experiences have went using a Horizontal Soil System. So that's what's coming up, guys. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow on the soil or chiropractic is sexy. And other than that, peace out, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye.